Hey everybody, Anish Majumdar here, career coach to the fiercely ambitious. I would consider what I'm about to talk to you about right now to be essential knowledge for anyone in any way, shape, or form who is working their way through the job market, who is trying to advance their careers, who is trying to build something meaningful. It took me many years before I looked at this and considered this question. And in retrospect, it's really crazy because I think it's one of the very first ones we should ask ourselves. Let's say you're out there. You're interviewing for a role. I don't care whether it's a C-suite level role, if it's mid-management, if you're just starting out your career. You're asked to do something that you don't want to do, something that you feel might compromise you. What do you do? And it's amazing that for all the great advice out there, is there anything like a methodology? Is there anything like a systematic way of thinking about these situations that allows you to make the right decisions way more often than not? And what I found is no, there isn't, right? Because people will tell you either A, be an absolute conformist, say yes to absolutely everything. And I can tell you as a career coach, that is completely wrong. There's 100 reasons why that's wrong, but the most obvious one is that for some level of roles, saying no to certain things is exactly what you need to do to get it. If you don't say no, you're going to be perceived as having no backbone, not having the necessary mettle for leadership. So certainly you should not say yes as a default. Saying yes as a default just because you get an interview, you're being considered for a role, not true. Others would say, if you say anything, or if they ask you anything that gets your ire up, just, get all huffy, huff and puff about it, get all Karen and Ken-like, to use our verbiage these days, and just walk out. And I would say that's a step too far also. I love, my wife would tell you, few things make me happier than a big, glorious, dramatic moment where I can expound on something and pretend to be righteous. But usually in hiring, it's not really like that either. We need to be a little bit more sophisticated about this. We need to think about all of this in a different way. And I want to lead you through a very systematic process that you can use, whether what is being asked of you is a presentation that you don't want to give, a third interview, a fourth interview, a fifth interview. Sometimes people will tell me a 10th interview that you don't think is productive. Whether it's a line of dialogue that you feel we don't need to be talking about, there's no way that can help. Whatever that thing is that you are being asked to do that is not right, that is not sitting well with you, walk through this process with me, okay? The very first thing, does this thing that is being asked move us closer or further away from an outcome, right? So you're asking me for background details on a job that I held 6 years ago that is barely relevant. If I ask myself, the first gate of a question, okay, is me answering this, no matter how I answer it, is this moving us closer or further away? Now, if it's early and it's relevant, then yeah, it might move us closer. I'm jumping in. I'm going to do the best to share the relevant details to tie it into what we know. Now, if it's late stage and what I'm picking up on is the fact that we're way beyond this, and in fact, it sort of feels like you asking me this is just a delay tactic, then answering it is only going to validate that delay tactic, and I shouldn't answer it. I shouldn't do it. I should do my best to respond in a way that keeps the dialogue relevant, that keeps us on focus and on point, and probably calling back to something that is relevant, right? So that's one question I would ask, is fundamentally, is this moving us closer to or further away? And if I have a clear answer one way or the other, I'd make a decision based on that. Next, okay? And by the way, when you're in early stage dialogue with an employer, there's three things we should all be thinking about on both employer part and employee part. Truth, commitment, and action. I need to get to the truth. Beyond the job posting, I need to know what is going on. You need to understand beyond my qualifications what the fit is. Commitment. I need to make sure you're deeply committed towards making the change. Beyond just hiring someone, you guys are committed as an organization to making these changes happen and riding through the ups and the downs. And then commitment on your side that this is the right person, right? And finally, action. At a certain tipping point, talking is done. We got to move to action. If we keep talking, we're actually taking away the motivation that we need, right? So I'm always thinking in that way. And so I'm asking myself, does it move us closer or further away? Here's the second question, okay? Is this a test? Sounds crazy, right? Is what you're being asked to do a test? There's a masterminder I worked with just a few weeks ago. She was asked to do an assessment after 3 interviews when it was very clear she was the right person for the role. I coached her through a way to politely, in the right way, say no to it, and wouldn't you know, the offer came within 12 hours of her refusal. And I'm convinced that there's nothing else she could have done aside from that no that would have tipped them over and said, okay, she's someone who can stand on her own 2 feet. She's someone who can disagree with us. This is exactly what we need. The ask was the test. So ask yourself, can I get any more authority from doing this? Can I get any more credibility from doing this? If the answer is no, then probably the answer you should be thinking about is a no to it. And refusals come in all ways, shapes, and forms, guys. There's tons of respectful ways that you can say no to someone or a company. And the best way that you can say no is to refuse and give a heartfelt reason why. And if you've got an alternative thing to do, suggest that as well, okay? So you want to ask yourself, is this a test? Here's another one, okay? What is the potential upside and downside? Right? If you're asking me a question or you're asking me to create something, and just by the dint of how you've structured it, I'm going to spend 80% of my time defending, there's no upside for me. There's no upside for me to actually do it, right? So just to preserve my candidacy, my level, if I know that doing this, I'm overwhelmingly likely to fail. Like if you were to ask me, Anish, do a home improvement project, I would love to say I'm going to get on it. But unfortunately, as my wife will also tell you, I am hilariously bad at home improvement. That's something I probably shouldn't do in a job context, right? Because I know that it's almost no chance, it's an outside chance that anything good from this is going to happen. So that alone, in many cases, both me as a coach and as a job seeker, there have been cases where I've said no to things just because it's overwhelmingly unlikely that I'm going to win. And guess what? An interview is not the time for you to build your skill set. An interview is not the time for you to take any risks whatsoever in terms of how you're going to be perceived. No way. The stakes are way too high. Here's my final question. Can I turn this situation and what is being asked into my advantage? So going back to that idea, there's a late stage presentation. I don't do presentations when I'm interviewing for things. That's not in my MO. However, I have identified 2 to 3 massive areas of pain, and I know that they're looking at it, but they're not really looking at it from a place of they have to do something about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say yes to this presentation. Only instead of spending all of my time giving them free information that they could potentially poach afterwards, I'm going to lead them right to the gates of action. I'm going to use the entire presentation to hammer on the pain instead of solutions, to hammer on the necessity, to hammer on how quickly the competition is outpacing them, to hammer on the negative outcomes of not moving forward. In other words, I'm going to use the entire presentation. They're expecting me to allay their fears. I'm going to stoke their fears. And as I show them my commitment and my understanding of what is really going on, I will drive them from that commitment to action. That's my goal. Right? So if I can alter the goal and move it towards my own outcome, that is a powerful reason for as well. So this is my question process whenever I'm asked to do something that I'm having doubts about or I may not want to do in hiring, right? The questions are, does this move us any closer or further away from the outcome, right? If it doesn't, suggest an alternative. Is this a test? What is the potential upside? What is the potential downside? If it's an overwhelming downside, I'm not going to do it. And I would recommend that you don't either. You're not in the job of making yourself look bad. You're in the business of making yourself look great, right? And indispensable. Final question, can I turn this to my advantage? All right. I hope that has been helpful. I hope that's given you some really powerful food for thought. If you want to go deeper into my world, I recommend that you go to helloanish.com, HELLOANISH.com. Among other things, I've got free trainings there. You're not going to get anywhere else. And I've got a free masterclass there where you're going to learn the exact methodology me and my team use to get deserving job seekers, deserving professionals of all stripes, including you, out of that send resume and wait hell forever and generate on your own terms. If you're interested, go over there. I promise you won't regret it. Talk soon, guys.